You're fine the way you are. This is the working session student.
Okay.
We are all graduate students, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I have some art.
Okay. All right. Action, please.
Take two.
Yes.
3 or 4 or 5. Okay. Okay, so what I was explaining was that the course for me, from the time I read the description and registered to take it, it felt like it was going to be about spiritual realizations. And that has been affirmed in every class during the lectures, with the readings, the conversations, things that we presented. Even the books that were passed around were very impressive. The pictures of goddesses in there, and that there were more pictures of goddesses than gods, and that was impacting for me because of our culture here. And so I did find myself constantly comparing Western religion and Eastern religion and feeling reminded over and over again, wow, we have a lot to learn from Hinduism. So the fact that there was so much spirituality in the art that we've been studying and the stories around it was really intriguing, very provocative for me in terms of evaluating our theologies and our doctrines and our traditions, and finding that this was so much more open and there was so much more room for bigger possibilities. So rather than having a very concentrated, rigid understanding of God, we have a God with all kinds of possibilities, a God that, a God for everyone. One of the things that I also love is that women tend to be seen as, and I've seen as, in many ways, softer, gentle, tender-hearted. These are words that are related to women, but at the same time, these women are pretty fierce, and they're protective, and they're fighters, and they are powerful. So when I was thinking about what to do for this project, I thought I'm just going to hold the same strand of thought that I've had from the beginning, and it's that taking this course has been a spiritual journey. And so I've made it very personal, and now and then I stop and think, okay, I'm making this too personal and very much about what's on my mind, but I wonder if what's on the minds of other people. And I think this comes up a lot for me because I have 3 daughters. And my daughters, when they talk about the culture here in the United States today, they use the words like rape culture. They talk about sexism. They talk about no is no. They get annoyed at the Axe commercials that come out, and they're offended by these things because they feel that it alters the way they would like to live and turns it into a different situation. So with an emphasis on goddesses, I think it evens the playing field a little bit, and it gives us something else to talk about. I feel that American culture stands to learn a lot from Eastern culture. I think just thinking about how young we are as a country, really, we're like a toddler. Maybe we're just potty trained here, but we think we've got it all figured out. But a 2 or 3 year old very confident child is entertaining at times, but with their confidence and their boldness, they can learn a lot. And so if we could come to that place of humility, of recognizing that the way that we handle religion and spirituality here in the United States could stand to learn to be a brighter, wider religion, more inclusive, more pluralistic, more diverse in what it offers when it's trying to be open to diversity of people, then it could be helpful. I don't know how we get that message out there, but maybe art could be a vehicle for that. Maybe art could provoke conversations that would cause groups to think about how we could augment religion in the United States. And rather than speaking of and hearing about and reading about the dying church, we could have a resurrecting church, or a renewed, refreshed, more open-minded church that more people can relate to. So that's where my reasoning is on why I did this particular project. I was thinking about, I think it was last week, I've misplaced my notebook, so this should be the part that's edited out, right? a little brown. No, it's a little tan right here under this. Okay. So in one of the recent lectures, Dr. Shimkata was speaking about Lakshmi and the list of things that come with her, wealth and health and beauty, happiness, purity, what looks good, goodness, truth, honesty, and under that, kindness, compassion, generosity, philanthropy, and Shri being the total package. So this was intriguing for me because in a lot of the religious traditions I've been exposed to, embracing some of these things or desiring some of these things or hoping for some of these things, while practical and realistic in the church is seen as maybe a lack of humility or a lack of trusting in God. So it was very exciting to me to learn that here is this goddess that people look to and are motivated by because she is a total package. And within that total package is wealth. And I'm a struggling graduate student. And so I'd be happy with just a little bit of wealth sometimes. I don't want to be, I don't know if I want to be or not. I haven't thought about it. I'm not asking to be a millionaire, but to be able to not wonder, how we're going to pay off our student loans when we're done here. That might be nice. So maybe it's okay to think about money. But the very fundamental, especially, message would be that you trust God for that. You trust God for all things. But then I don't understand why there are so many people who are trusting God and are lacking in many things that they should have, right? Like the right kind of food and things that their children need, and how about an education, right? Beauty. So we focus on, it's all vanity, right? And yet God is the creator of beauty, so I think God loves beautiful, and maybe we just need to look at what we mean when we say beautiful, right? Because I'm surrounded by a room full of beautiful people and beautiful minds, and it's a beautiful experience. So I think we should embrace just the concept of what is beautiful. And I think also affirming one another as beautiful people and not having to say, oh, no, I'm going to go check my makeup, right? Because it's not what we're here for. It's not what it's about. The word beautiful is so much deeper and so much bigger. Another thing about the gods that we've been studying is that I often would be frustrated because God always seemed to have to be big and loud and powerful. And so I don't relate well to some of those characteristics. And I wrote at one point that I want God to be invisible and quiet and small so that God could linger somewhere with me. Right? That's a God that I can relate to sometimes. And so I think that the qualities and the challenges with the gods and goddesses that we've been studying have made them more practical and have made them much more acceptable. I think they are relevant to human beings, and I think that they would be awesome role models for our children. I have very few regrets because I learned from most of my failures, right? They teach you well, but I do regret that I didn't have this kind of knowledge when my children were small, because I definitely would have used the stories of these goddesses and these gods and these mothers to raise my children with a wider thinking, So what I decided to draw, I love the story of Ganesha, and originally I thought I was going to go with Mother Parvati, and I didn't because I felt like when I got to Dr. Shimkata helped me with the pronunciation. Mariamman? How do you say it? Mariamman? Maryamman? Mariam? It sounds like Miriam.
Miriam, huh?
Miriam? Okay. Well, I have an aunt named Miriam, so I thought, well, that's just too easy. So I decided that if I was going to put in the work to create a piece of art, then I wanted it to be somebody who was exciting. So Miriam was very exciting to me because she was not only the guardian of her village, right, But she was a person who was not peaceful. Don't hurt her feelings. Don't upset her, because she will get mad. And I thought, well, there's a God that's relevant, and this is realistic, because when our feelings get hurt, we get mad because we're hurt. And so she's very tangible for me. She's a goddess of disease, and specifically smallpox and chickenpox were mentioned. And so she can not only protect her village from disease, but if somebody's messing with her people or hurts her feelings, she can also inflict these illnesses on them. And I thought that was pretty, it just keeps her so real for me. It really keeps her real. The deities of the villages also were not there for intimate one-on-one personal relationships, where here in this country, a lot of the message we hear is that the whole thing with Jesus is that this is a personal and intimate relationship, right? And so while each creation I do believe is unique and special, I also believe that it would bring more unity to a community if there is a goddess there who says, I'm loving all of you as one, right? And so I think that would be a motivational piece for a community living in a village to live as one. So I don't know if that's what was behind it, but it really seemed to make sense. She's the protector of the village, and she's the guardian of the village boundaries, but she doesn't have the power to protect them beyond the boundaries. So I thought about that too, and I might be overthinking all of this, but so what? It's really exciting to overthink the goddesses. And the fact that outside of the village, they have no protection from Mariam, I think that it says that she's happy to be home in her village with her people, and she doesn't have to go wandering to other villages, and her villagers also are happy to be there with her. So I think reading between the lines seems to be okay in the stories of the goddesses. The village itself has a cosmos that is complete, so they don't need to go anywhere else. And she really has their back. She's taking care of them. So I think that Mariam would be a goddess who, unlike the God that I grew up with, which was powerful and all-knowing and omniscient and omnipresent and seemed loud and huge, I think that Mariam is about how great and how small, how much and how little, because all of those things are just fine. So that's those are my impressions of her. Now my drawings of her, I did them in colored pencil because I have a daughter who is very artistic and does beautiful work, but she favors colored pencils. And so whenever I see a box of really exciting color, there are colored pencils that you see them on the shelf, they're actually exciting. Really neat colors, and they have different textures. And so I did take pictures of different stages of this, and it was fun to look at it. And there was even a stage where I erased her entire face. And I thought, I had a face on there, and now I've erased it and have to figure out how to make a new one. And I'm just not a face drawer. But what I did was, I took the words that, to me, kind of were strong words: mother, the village, the goddess, and the power. And I made them a little darker. And then I wrote along the sides other things, like Aman, which means mother, that she is a personification of nature. She has the ability to let it rain, let the sun shine, or just flat out throw out the thunder and lightning. And I thought that was, that's like a 28-day cycle in my mind, you know? So very much a woman. I did a lot of swirling things that came really right out of her head, which for me was like hair. And I found that while I was drawing and making all of these swirls, I was thinking about how they could be colored in. But it was also so therapeutic. It was so much fun to draw this picture. that I know I've said that I'm not a good artist, but I'm going to say I truly enjoyed creating this piece. Whether it is going to go on a scale from 1 to 10 doesn't matter anymore. So also. Another thing too, another approach that I took to drawing this is I'm not actually drawing Miriam exactly the way she's drawn. I decided that if I had never seen a picture of her, because I looked at a lot of images of her, but I thought if I had never seen an image of her, what am I seeing? So again, I'm looking at an Eastern goddess through a Western lens. And so what I came up with is a little different. I feel that while we've learned that red is the color of life and blood, and I feel like her body is like an hourglass, and so I have red drops and blue drops instead of sand, and red is for blood, but blue is for tears, because mothers, we do it all with blood, sweat, and tears. But yet when it comes to the bottom, it all just goes right into the earth altogether. Her torso is just a big heart, because mothers are very loving and very caring. They are definitely protectors, and then when we fight with heart. And we will fight unto the death for our children. I know I certainly would. She's also able to be vindictive. You hurt my people, you hurt my baby, and you're going to have to answer to me for it, which I hadn't really thought much about how that sounds to the child. Like, wow, my mom's really on my side here. Yes, if somebody hurts you, they're going to regret it, So I like that Miriam gave me the freedom to be very, tiger-like and bold. So one of the quotes in our notes was to look beyond the tangible world and to look where beauty meets the eye. And I loved the idea that the mind is the forerunner of all things. So it all starts in here, and then you move on from there. And this right here I thought was beautifully poetic and romantic. Lift that veil and look within and look beyond. And to me, I think that that's just something as a society we fail to do way too often. Earlier in class, we were talking about different people that we've met that are homeless and how they have made us laugh, and they have really touched us, and they have lifted us up from where we were before they came on the scene. And that's because we lifted a veil and we looked for what was really there, not what we saw on the outside. So I think that Miriam is surely a beautiful goddess, and surely possesses some characteristics that I myself would strive to emulate, and that is my painting. So really, or my drawing. So it's like sun, clouds, water, ocean, lightning. I also have eyes. There's eyes. There's another thing with moms, right? There are eyes everywhere. So when I was little, I used to tell my children not to lie to me because God tells me everything. And so that's my drawing.
Yes.
Oh. That's it.
Pass it around.
Yeah, you can pass it around.
Thank you.